Hello, welcome to Breakfast Central this beautiful Friday morning, reaching you live from the city of Lagos. I am Gbenga and Olive. Sit back, relax. For the next 3 hours, we're going to furnish you with a lot of information, giving you the best insightful discussions on the news and happenings in Nigeria and, of course, beyond. So sit back, relax, grab your coffee, and welcome to Breakfast Central. Olive, what's going on? Do you want to start using sign language?
You said, when you were saying sit back, relax, I was describing a sit back, relax, and I was looking at
I wasn't talking to you. I was referring to millions of viewers.
So I don't deserve to sit back and relax?
Not at this point. Let's do the work first.
We should do the work first. All right. Good morning. Lovely guest. Thank you for joining us to start this final day of the week here at Breakfast Central. 3 hours of looking at what's trending around the country in terms of Nigeria's political and economic, socio-political and economic space. But we also will be taking conversations with you, engaging you on social media. We're streaming live on YouTube at News Central TV. Drop your thoughts and comments on any of the stories that we'll be looking at. Your agreements as well as your disagreements, we'll be happy to take them as well on Breakfast Central. You can also tweet at us individually via at Olive Emodi at Gbenga and Olive. Shout out to Joe Hansen, who is on leave for a while, so you might not be seeing him for a couple of days. But yes, the show continues. We're going to miss you so much, too. The show is not going to be the same without you.
I'm glad you're speaking for yourself.
Because you are not going to miss him?
Just a little bit. A little binge like this.
Then when we get offset, we'll now be wailing and crying and dropping tears of blood.
We'll see him.
Okay, so what happened while I was away yesterday for just 24 hours? I hear a little birdie tells me that River State government, the emergency rule has been lifted by the president. Unfortunately, it would seem that there's a lacuna in the River State House.
There's no lacuna, but we don't understand the explanation. But maybe when we get to what Nigerians are saying, they will tell us the reason why you assume there's a lacuna. But let's celebrate. I wish we had a bottle of champagne now, because democracy has been fully activated in all 36 states of the Federation. Nigeria is now fully democratic. There's nothing like, there's no sole administrator anymore. Democratic instruments have been restored. The governor, the deputy governor, the River State House of Assembly, everyone is back. And this came into effect at midnight yesterday. But, a little but, and there was celebrations around Government House in Port Harcourt yesterday. People were happy that their democratically elected governor, Governor Siminalayi Fubara, was back, or they've lifted the emergency rule. But 24 hours after the expiration of the emergency rule, the governor is yet to resume office.
And the question is, why is Governor Siminalayi Fubara yet to resume office 24 hours after? We certainly know that a few days ago we took information about how he and President Bola Ahmed Tinubu had cut short their trip and returned to the country, and many assumed that the return of the executive governor as well as the commander-in-chief, grand commander-in-chief of the Federal Republic of Nigeria was because of the transition that was set to happen in River State from the sole administration back to democracy that the citizens of River State voted for. Unfortunately, 24 hours later, the emergency rule has been lifted, and we're yet to see Governor Siminalayi Fubara. I many have started to make insinuations. There's a video. I don't know if you remember the time when Governor Sim Fubara gave a speech and said that he's tired, that his spirit has left there, that he's not even interested in going back. And I think we have that video of Governor Sim Fubara saying that his spirit has left there. Let's take a look.
Have you asked yourself, do you think I'm even interested in going back? I want to ask you, don't you see how better I look? Do you think I'm interested in it? If I have my way, I say it's clear. It's the order of God. I don't wish going back there. My spirit has left that place, not to go.
Perhaps this could be the reason why we haven't seen Governor Sim Fubara now, because his spirit is not yet back into the government.
Yes, and if there's no effective communication from the governor's media team, you leave room for speculation and all sorts of assertion and, scenarios. And that's why, as journalists, we've gone back to play what he said in the recent past while he was suspended, that maybe this could be the reason, or perhaps, or maybe he has a cold, because if it wasn't because I'm so diligent and professional, I wouldn't have made it to work today. But I know that millions of Nigerians and millions of people around the world would watch Breakfast Central because of me. So I decided that come rain or sunshine,
or cold,
and no weapon fashioned against me, or cold, I'll be here today. That's why I kind of sound like AI, African intelligence.
How did you get this code?
I don't know, maybe enemies sent arrow through to me, spiritual arrow, to give me the code. But forget about the code. The show goes on. I'm audible, I'm professional, they can hear me, so.
Well, maybe.
Yeah, but on a serious note, I believe the governor should have communicated. It's almost like a slap on the faces of Nigerians, not just people of the state that came out en masse to welcome him back to Government House. Even if you are not going to make it for one reason or the other,
explain
or issue a statement.
Yes. So it would seem that the administration of Governor Siminalayi Fubara has.
I mean, look at this multitude of people on your screen that came to welcome the governor, only for the governor not to show up at work after enjoying 6 months forced holiday.
Well,
I mean, what could be the reason?
So that's the thing. The one thing you cannot disagree with is the fact that citizens in Rivers State fully love and support their governor. When the emergency rule was swung into effect, you could see, yes, there were factions that were sort of supporting the emergency rule, but there was a huge faction that was supporting the governor and saying that, that's not what they voted for. You could see people coming out in their numbers. See them. Our Rivers
governor is back to serve.
Right. So there's an excitement that was in the air that the citizens of Rivers State had, and it would have been great for the government to give an explanation as to why he was being absent. But today is another day for us to wait and see why, what will happen if the governor will return back to office, or if the governor will be again away. Unfortunately, I wouldn't say unfortunately, but the Rivers State House of Assembly has already swung into action. There's work that's going on. There's also talks about...
They've hit the ground running.
They've hit the ground running, exactly. There's also talks about the potential of them officially investigating the time of the sole administrator and ensuring that they do some form of a vetting to assess what has happened, what was spent during the time of the sole administrator, which we think is very important, because if you spend 6 months in office, you are not there as an executive governor of the state. And even if you were there has to be accountability.
Absolutely.
We need to start holding leaders to account. And I look forward to the time when we can set a standard of governance where the person coming in, or even if it's not the person coming in, that there is a thorough investigation of the previous administration, so that anyone who's going into office knows to comport themselves, knowing that when they leave, immunity clause doesn't cover them, it doesn't protect them, and that they'll be thoroughly investigated. Maybe then we will start to see those who would handle governance with the sanctity that it should be handled. But let's now head to social media and see what Nigerians are saying about the absence of Governor Siminalayi Fubara, the lifting of the emergency rule, the sole administrator, of course, exiting the scene, and the government house in Rivers State still remaining vacant. Alhaji Abubakar says, lifting the suspension of Governor Sim Fubara is nothing to cheer about. The suspension of the Rivers State governor and the State House of Assembly was unconstitutional when it was done 6 months ago and is still illegal today. President Tinubu had no power to suspend a democratically elected governor, and state lawmakers. The Rivers shenanigans only signpost the dictatorship of the Tinubu administration. Signed, Alhaji Atiku Abubakar. Nefertiti says in 162 days, the highest court of Nigeria failed to determine the case brought before it by 11 PDP governors against the federal government. The apex court failed to determine the suit challenging the removal of Governor Fubara and the appointment of a sole administrator. They simply left the file on a dusty shelf. RIP to the judiciary in Nigeria is in order. The Supreme Court became silent when the case was between the federal government and public interest. The apex court has taken sides. They are not neutral. Elections in Nigeria became one of the most expensive in the world. For a charade that will end in go to court, the Supreme Court is now academic, a scarecrow of its former glory. Nigeria was okay until the APC showed up. They decimated our country to ground zero, but that wasn't enough. They found additional mojo to capture the courts and all institutions as well. Justice Kayode Esho, Chukwudifo Oputa, Mohammed Uwais, Karibi White, Anthony Aniagolu, and George Oguntade are disappointed. These were activist judges. They were fearlessly courageous. When the matter for determination was of national importance, importance, they dispensed it judiciously and timely. Their landmark judgments are reference points for other judges and lawyers to this day. The Supreme Court is now into regime protection, the worst kind since 1999. The judiciary contributed greatly to the political morass we have in Nigeria today. The fastest road to a failed state is when citizens completely lose faith in the judiciary. When they say, go to court, you already know they have the judiciary in their pocket. No businessman can bring their money into a country where the judiciary is compromised, where officials can dictate court judgments. Seller, full stop. Let's pause on that tweet, and I want to talk about that
very
before
rich
we go back.
And all encompassing.
Yes, let's pause on that tweet before we take the rest. And I remember when we had this conversation with a guest, and they were saying that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu had already made the declaration that Sim should have played the politics, and that he did play the politics, and they applauded him. I was of the opinion, and I'm still of the opinion, that the law.
And even with Natasha's case,
yes,
the
law. So at the end of the day, the bulk of the responsibility lies at the courts. If the court has not declared it illegal, you cannot say that it's illegal. It is the court that has the authority to determine that something is illegal.
And as a matter of national importance and certain precedents, they do have a duty to come out. And 6 months is a long time to say.
A lot could have been done within that time. This should have been sorted. The matter should have been brought before the court. I mean, it was brought before the court, but the court should have adjudicated on this matter, and it should have been sealed. And if the court is deciding that it's not illegal, then there should have been a judgment in that regard. If the court determines that it's illegal, there should have been a judgment or a ruling in that regard. Unfortunately, when the story of Rivers State sole administration is ever told, there would be both sides of the divide. There would always be two camps. Some who would believe it's illegal, some who would believe it's legal. But this matter could have been sorted if justice had taken its course, if the courts had made a pronouncement, a declaration, if they had given judgment on the matter that the PDP governors had brought before the court. Unfortunately, we will never know.
I mean, supporters of state of emergency will say that former President Olusegun Obasanjo had declared during his time, but it was illegal. Yeah, and it still doesn't make it right. You can't build wrong on a wrong foundation.
Two wrongs don't make a right.
Yeah, two wrongs don't make a right.
Okay,
I hope lessons have been learned, and would also, it will be important for us to let our viewers know that we're going to discuss the state of emergency as a topic on its own with an expert during the course of today's program. So,
all right, let's still take a few more tweets regarding the issue in Rivers State before we go to our next story. Anya Akwa Ibom says, Nigeria, what exactly is wrong with us? Look at the number of Rivers State people throughout the streets to receive Fubara. Imagine the same number of people had taken to the streets to protest the illegality of the state of emergency. How did we get to this level of hypocrisy? Well, there was a large number, if you remember. Unfortunately, things turned out differently in Rivers State. There were protests and counter-protests. Still on the tweets we have here, I never expected Rivers people to be this cowardly. Many stayed silent when the man was removed, and some even took sides. Now that he's back, they've all returned to support him. As for Sim Fubara, he hasn't even taken his own stand. Oh my sheo, Atoba Jaye said that. I used to think that Atoba Jaye was a name reserved only for God. Anyway, this one, it says, I'm happy the governor didn't show up. Let everyone go home. Fake supporters. When he was illegally removed, the so-called supporters didn't say a word. They mostly moved on with their lives as usual. Let them all go home. Fubara will resume without fanfare. In other words, Cynthia Ofori, go home.
This is a new angle. Could that also be one of the reasons?
It's a possibility.
That where were you guys when I was suspended?
It's a possibility.
Yes.
Unfortunately, this is sad for our democracy and a shame. In a democracy, power should never be exercised outside the clear text of the Constitution. This episode sets a dangerous precedent that must be resisted by every legal and civic means available. How can a president order a governor to vacate and then resume office at will, as though the mandate of the people were no more than the rules of a local drinkers association, Akintunde Babatunde asked? And that does it. That's all I have this morning regarding the Rivers State story. And we'll be delving into this in detail. It's going to be one of our top conversations, like Gbenga had mentioned earlier. But now let's move on to another development in Nigeria's education sector. Reports have it that the federal government has returned history to the basic school curriculum 15 years later. Recall that history was taken out as a subject, and there was a pushback. There were many who argued that history was removed, and as a result, a number of young people had no idea about our journey, our story, and people kicked back against that. So I think that there's an applause for the federal government.
That's a very important decision made by the federal government, and deserves all the applause, because people without a history are lost. And how do you plan for the future if you don't know where you're coming from? And I say this as a matter of fact, that a lot of Nigerians, even 40, 30-year-olds, cannot chronicle heads of state, something as simple as that. People who've been president of Nigeria from independence to date. So let alone the mistakes that we made, what caused the Civil War, if they are historically aware of some of the things we've gone through as a country and some of the sacrifices that our leaders in the past have made, they will be more circumspect in the way they talk to each other, the way they use social media, the sort of ethnic bickering and the sort of language they use, so as not to repeat the mistakes of the past. So it's a good one. Let's hope the curriculum is also looked into. Not just, or you don't teach history for the sake of history. You teach the right, the correct, the true, and the proper history. Let's hope it's not from a Eurocentric perspective. Don't tell us that Mungo Park discovered River Niger when people were bathing in the River Niger thousands of years before Mungo Park ever dreamt of coming to Nigeria. So,
right.
Shout out to Kode Bello. Mungo Park did not discover my own River Niger.
Well,
yeah.
I mean, history was removed about, I think, let me just confirm that, 2009-2010 academic session, and was subsumed under social studies. And why this is important that is returned is because, like Gbenga has mentioned, it's important for people to know where we're coming from. He said that the people that do not know where they're coming from will not know where they're going to. Take, for example, Rwanda. The reason why certain things happen in Rwanda is because they have preserved their history. When you think of Rwanda and you're thinking of tourist experiences, the first thing that comes to your mind is the Genocide Memorial. And the reason why, I've never been to Rwanda, but I know about the Genocide Memorial because there's almost nobody who goes to Rwanda that doesn't go to the Genocide Memorial, doesn't come back feeling humbled. They all come back feeling more emotional. Someone said to me that they felt palpable sadness seeing the people that were killed and just being in that museum. And what that does for them is that much later, conversations about where are you from, I don't know this, but I hear that it's offensive to ask a Rwandan,
are you Hutu or
Tutsi? Like, oh, where are you from in Rwanda? That they all tell you that they are all, Rwandese, right?
So yes.
So at the end of the day,
that's how it should be. And I really like this decision. And the curriculum from primary 1 to 6, the themes are Genesis 1, could we scroll up please? Genesis 1 to 3, civic and heritage studies. Heritage is very important. Oftentimes, you see Nigerians on social media, they say, oh, we're not even a country, the country doesn't have any rich history, nothing. I had the privilege of hosting the launch of the Digital Museum a few weeks ago, and my mind was blown at what our ancestors were capable of doing. The intricate art. It's even nicer, it's a greater experience when you experience this art digitally. You begin to appreciate what they did because you see the intricate details of terracotta art, bronze heads, knock art, and art that predates the creation of Nigeria. So it's really a marvel to behold. And when you understand that, look, our ancestors were savages, they were inventors, they created things, we had our own way of life, then you begin to, it could even inspire people to spark the renaissance and the rebirth of our beautiful country, Nigeria, and what we would like to see. So it's a good thing that history has been returned to the secondary school curriculum, compulsory.
Because the truth is, if you don't tell your story by yourself, someone else will tell the story for you. And the way in which they will tell the story might not reflect the correct picture of what is. We need young people to understand the many things that are so very fundamentally Nigerian. Things like our language. You know how many languages have gone into extinction? There are even Nigerian languages that have gone into extinction. So we need to be able to, I remember back in the day when we were much younger, we had things like people did Yoruba, Igbo in classes, Hausa as courses, and had to write them at WAEC and NECO.
Right.
And then there were things like, you know, those little current affairs pamphlets that we had that would detail several... No, not even Ogosiugo. There's this little one that looks like music book. It's like the same size of music book.
Oh, your ministers and governors,
let you know who the ministers
states and capital.
Yes, and then it had a number of them will tell you who president was from, you know, 19, you know, from our independence up until now. So there were things that were being taught, and I think that is very important. And one part of our history that I wish that we will hold on to as much as possible will be language, because I find that a number of parents don't like their children speaking their language because they think it will affect your.
They call it vernacular.
Oh, and in schools, anybody who speaks vernacular, you put one in the vernacular jar. We need to embrace our language.
Or you beat them.
Our language is what makes us Nigerian.
Exactly.
Right. But let's see what Nigerians think about this, what they're saying about it on X. Mr. Kemerun Chukwumunagi says, under political development in Nigeria, Nigeria Biafra 1967 to 1970 genocide is missing and was not included in the curriculum. Asaba massacre is not there. Why including history of other countries when our own history is not fully included? It's a nice move though, and I cannot verify that, but if that's true, then that's a problem. I hope the history taught will be exactly how it happened and not hypocritical taught nor diluted to vilify some and praise few. If this be the case, please take it off the curriculum because there are tendencies of this being manipulated after being removed for so long. So I was going to mention the downsides, but let's continue with the tweets. This one says, this is good 100%. Now children will learn about Bola Ahmed Tinubu's involvement in Nigeria's history. Likewise, River State children will learn about the villains of emergency rule in River State and how they subverted the will of the people, even at the ballot.
Interesting take there. S-Man says, actually, our government is not doing enough to make the education sector great. Before implementing such a new curriculum, they should investigate whether the public schools can accommodate the new curriculum. Who will teach such courses? Do the schools have enough facilities? You don't need facilities to teach history. You need graduates and teachers of history to teach history, and it's a course that is widely offered in many federal universities across the nation. So just to answer your question there.
So I think that that's also a key issue that was raised there. One of the main challenges that in reintroducing history would be balancing narratives.
Yes.
Because there will be multiple narratives, there's a potential of bias. History is told by a person from their perspective. And just imagine that they wanted to write the story of NSAS from the perspective of the Nigerian youth and from the perspective of the government of the day at the time when it happened. I think that there will be some discrepancies.
I mean, just report it like journalists do. Balance, tell the story. Yeah.
Yeah, but
as it happened.
But so that's the thing. The concern about the potential of bias. The person who made reference to Asaba massacre, it's not a story that is often told in Nigeria's media, but it did happen. If you go to Asaba, you go to Ogbe quarters, you will see the epitaph.
There's a monument.
A monument that was put up, erected there, and it had names. And guess what? I didn't even know about the Asaba massacre. The only reason I knew about the Asaba massacre was because I visited the Ogbe quarters and I took the pictures. I remember posting it, and I had people on Instagram saying, "Oh, that's my uncle's name. That's my grandfather's name." But these are parts of our history.
And it's very important we tell those stories.
The good, the bad, and the ugly. But that's all that we have this morning on Wake Up Conversations. Just to quickly take one comment on YouTube. Mokoye Chukwuemeka, good morning, and good morning, Marvelous Sunny. Mokoye Chukwuemeka says, if I am Fubara, my SIM won't enter that phone. That is in bracket, government house, again. And he says, Olive and Gbenga, if you were in Fubara's shoes, will you go back? If you ask me, now who I go ask?
I will go back. Government life is sweet, especially as governor.
Okay, let's share what our top stories this morning are on Breakfast Central. This morning, Amewule-led Assembly resumed seating, demand budgets, cabinet list. And this is, of course, in River State. Don't block Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan's resumption, NBA tells Senate. They already did that. Lagos Fire Service probes Lagos Blaze launches safety task force. That is regarding the recent fire incidents on the island of Lagos. Federal government unveils ambitious high-speed rail project to connect 5 regions. The newspaper front pages will be part of today's show, and we'll have our analyst and then open the phone lines at that point. Stay with us.